Hello, everybody, and welcome to the replay. Thank you for watching in replay. And tonight, I wanted to chat to you all about immigration. So, first of all, to those who don't know me, hello. I'm Zoe. Harley is sleeping, thankfully. Gave her the magical 1-2 combo of bath and boob. Just knocked her out. So Harley's asleep, and I have my hot chocolate in one of my favorite mugs, and I thought I would talk to you all about immigration. Now, Grammarly keeps trying to correct when I write immigration to immigration. So I want to be clear. Like, I'm talking about the emigrating part, which is the leaving part, as compared to the immigration part, which is the coming into a country part. Um, just to be clear, like, I'm not misspelling immigration. I am purposely using immigration Grammarly plugin. Stop telling me what to do. So, anyway, I thought I would chat to you kind of about the whole journey of immigration and making the decision, and then how we went from sort of having this idea that we wanted to do it through to actually, bureaucratically speaking, basically being sorted. So, I'll just start from the beginning, and we'll see how it goes. You guys can feel free to pipe up with questions as I go along. Hey, Dilma. Now I'm a wonderful speller. I just want to put it out there. I did not used to spell well. Yes, my love. What? What's wrong? What? Yeah. Yeah. Shit. Husband with desperation for helping me share, which is yay. So okay. So just to kind of start at the beginning, we had the idea that we wanted to immigrate for quite some time now, and our first hurdle was getting Harley's paperwork sorted, which was a local issue, and eventually that was done. So then it was really... Shh, you do your shit. Off. Shh. 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 So, for those who didn't read the blog post, South African Home Affairs refused to give Harley a birth certificate because she was born prem and my status was weird. Anyway, Dean, shh. So we had the whole conversation about did we want to go, and Dean had said to me, when Harley was basically born, that he was thinking we should go just because he was concerned about the future that he could guarantee for me and for her. But, we kind of had this, like, long term, we don't know when, maybe if, blah, 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 a lot of back and forth. But it was about a year ago that we thought, like, okay, let's look at this more closely. And then once Harley got her birth certificate with much frustration, eventually we got her birth certificate and I got her American citizenship sorted. So she has South African and American citizenship. I have the American citizenship, and so then it was just a matter of getting Dean's green card sorted. But just to kind of stay on why we decided to go for a little bit, there were a variety of push and pull factors. So I think that's kind of important in anyone making an immigration decision, is that it shouldn't just be push and it shouldn't just be pull. Like, I think you need to have reasons to go to a specific place and reasons to leave wherever you are at the moment. No place is perfect. No, the grass is always greener, or whatever expression you want to use. No place is perfect. Every place is going to have its fair share of issues. But those issues need to align with what matters to you and your priorities. So, like, South Africa has an amazing quality of life, and we've been very, very happy here. I don't want anyone to think we have any illusions about South Africa. Like, I absolutely have been very, very happy here. But, there are a lot of issues, both politically and economically, and, all of those things. But one of the biggest push factors, actually, for us was education. So, early on, I think Harley was about 4 months old, 6 months old, somewhere in there, we started looking at schools for her locally. And I wasn't particularly happy with the public schools. Not that they're bad, but I just didn't feel like they were reliable. I felt like they were okay for now, but so many schools have changed a lot over the years that it's kind of like I didn't want to rely on sending Harley to a public school, and also with the idea that she might want to be, we might want to move. I'd kind of intended, well, okay, we were definitely going to send her to an international private school. And then it became the question of, well, okay, so if we send her to an international private school, we're going to be spending like $1 million, $2 million grand on her education. So we were still like, well, okay, it's worth it. This is, our priority. And then I started looking at these schools, and it was just like, not all of them were great. They had these huge deposit requirements, and I just wasn't very happy with all of that. So, the more I thought about it, the more we talked about it, the more it was like, well, then we have to really look at, what is the alternative? And for us, it was like, well, what about if we move to the States? And then came in all the pull factors. So then we were able to get excited about, the idea of sending her to a good school, a public school that was, of good quality. But then also all the other fun stuff that we would be able to do. So obviously it would be amazing to live closer to my mom. We haven't lived on the same continent since I was a teenager, so that's definitely a big pull factor. But also like silly things, that Dean could have like the weird Weber smoker that he's wanted, and we were finding fun restaurants and stuff like that we were, gonna have fun going to, and just all the odds and ends. And like strangely, our current big pull factor is postal service that will work. How fun will that be to be able to order stuff online and have it actually like get to us with minimal issue, as compared to now where it's like, it has to be couriered with a tracking list and blah blah blah, or it just never arrives in South Africa. So that's kind of the push-pull factor. So we knew we wanted to move, and we decided to get the ball rolling. So in January, I filed the paperwork. Now, it's kind of important to point out, like, I've been talking to some people who are looking to emigrate, and they're wondering about the process. So just to be clear, the reason we could file at the consulate is because I fulfilled the local residency requirements. So if you're just like a random American visiting South Africa or married to a South African, you can't just apply through the South African consulate because you think it'll be easier. You have to be a resident of South Africa to make use of the local citizen services in the country. So I know that might sound a bit odd to people, but like, it's been a fantastic process for us because there are so few people applying through the country because so few people qualify. So if you're looking to apply for a green card, which is what we've done, and you're married to an American person or have that sort of contact, then this would apply to you. But if the American isn't a resident of South Africa, then you might not be able to have such an easy process doing it through the South African consulate. You might have to do the application directly through, it's like some lockbox in Chicago. I have no idea how that works. It's very weird, and it looks very long and drawn out and complicated and not fun. So for me, what I did in January was I filled in what was called the I-130 application, and basically it was saying I wanted to apply for a green card on behalf of my spouse. And if Harley hadn't been granted her American citizenship through me, I would have had to do the same. I would have had to fill in a form for her as well. So I filled in the form for Dean, and that form itself wasn't that bad. It was basically like I had to prove that I was me, that Dean was Dean, and then prove our relationship. That was the purpose of that application. So it was interesting. Like, I sort of thought, like, well, we'll just bring Harley's birth certificate as proof, and that'll be enough. No. So obviously they wanted our marriage certificate and Harley's birth certificate, but they also actually really wanted pictures. So we went for the interview and everything, and then they were like, okay, well, you'll have to email us through photos. So I actually was very grateful for that weird Facebook, like, there's a Facebook thing where if you do www.facebook.com/us and you're in a relationship, it shows you your relationship and like your relationship history with that person. So I was able to grab all the old photos of me and Dean from like when we started dating through to the marriage through to now, and that was like made my life a lot easier than trying to dig through old photos on my hard drive. So as far as the interview itself, it really wasn't bad. Like, I think not we've all, some of us have seen that terrible movie with Gerard Depardieu where he marries, I don't know, some famous actress. He marries someone for the green card, and it's this whole thing about how, he prepares for the test and he forgets the name of her face cream, and then they deny him the green card or some stuff like that. It's really weird. It's not like that at all. So, like, they were asking, okay, when did you guys meet, blah, 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 and, like, I knew the dates and Dean was useless, but we're sitting in the room together with Harley, and I was going, no, it's 2007, and Dean was like, are you sure it's not 2008, and, kind of going back and forth, and I was like, no, definitely 2007, and then the interviewer guy was like, okay, so which one is it, and I was like, no, 2007, and Dean was like, yeah, no, she's right, like, it would have been 2007, so, like, it's not like a pop quiz where, I don't know, like Family Feud, you get like a buzzer that goes off, like, no, you got it wrong. So it was a very relaxed kind of thing, and basically they just asked us to tell the story of how we met and our life and all of that, and it was Andy McDowell. Thank you, Mom. Oh no. So it's not at all like the movie Green Card. I had also read online that they would like separate us and ask questions that only someone who was really married would know, like, does your spouse have siblings, and where do you keep the toilet paper in your house, and stuff like that. And it just wasn't like that. Like they ask. It is true that they ask seemingly innocuous questions, but it is like if you're actually in a relationship, it's not even a difficult thing to answer. Thanks, Loma. Oh, husband, what? Oh, yes, okay. So, Dean is reminding me when I once had like an immigration issue thing in South Africa, I had to go deal with immigration behind closed doors in Oliver Rambo Tambo, as Jen called it, ORT, Oliver Tambo Airport. And they pulled me aside and like I was chatting about me and Dean being together and blah blah blah. It was not an official interview type thing. It was nothing that scary. I just had to pay a fine because my visa had expired and all of that. And they were telling me they had just pulled off a Nigerian plane and there were people there like, no, I'm married to a South African. Really, what's her name? I call her Tundi. Okay, how many rooms are there in your house together? 3? Like, they just didn't know. It was such a lie. It was like a complete lie. So, that's the thing, is like, if you're in an actual relationship, if you are married, or even just dating or whatever, if you're in a real relationship, I hate that, but if you're in a real relationship, the questions aren't that difficult. They're not trying to trip you up. They're not trying to make it that, your husband ends up on the couch or whatever, that he says something wrong or like forgets your anniversary or something. Like, they realize that people are human and might not be able to study their own relationship and prepare for the interview type thing. So it is pretty chilled. But that said, like, I did hear other people when we went this last time where it was like, okay, where's your girlfriend? And it's like, Cape Town. Oh, how many times have you seen her? 3. Like, you're just kind of like, what are you doing here? Why are you applying? Like, this is obviously fake. So obviously they do need to have these procedures in place, and they do need to do all this. So I filed the I-130 in January, and it was fairly straightforward. Like I said, gave in all the documentation. They made their own copies. They didn't want copies of anything. And then they were like, okay, it'll be 3 to 6 weeks. And actually 2 weeks later, we got approval that the I-130 application had been accepted and that we would be hearing from Emigration soon. Then apparently that mail went to my junk file because I never got it. So I had to resend it and I had to find it and all of that. But eventually I got this mail from Emigration, and it was this whole checklist of everything that we had to have. And a lot of it was fairly straightforward. It was stuff like, birth certificates and marriage certificates and, the police clearances, which were a bit tricky to get, but not impossible. Scandinavia, yes, definitely better education. They're doing some really cool stuff in education in Scandinavia, but it's way easier for us to... It's way easier for us to emigrate to the U.S. What with me and Harley having citizenship, and then we could just get Dean. I'm gonna kick you out. So yeah, we're gonna go with the U.S. for now because it's a lot easier. But easier is a. No, you're not sorry. Go away. So yeah, no, we're gonna go with the U.S. for now because it is easier. But by easier, by no means easy. So yeah, the form, like, there was a really irritating form we had to fill in, a DS-260 that was just like not odd questions, but it was like Dean had to go and find every address he's ever lived in, like every single address since he was born, every school he attended, everything. So like, there we are, like, calling his mom, like, where did we live when I was in high school? Where did we live when I was this or that? Also Dean, like, doesn't know his parents' year of birth off by heart, so we had to ask them that. Like, just stuff like that that's like, some people might know, some people might not, but it does take a bit to sort those forms out. And then we had to prove that he would, we had to prove our marriage and all those kinds of concepts again in that form. We also had to go for a medical, one of the most expensive medicals ever. So it's obviously a racket of some description, which sounds terrible, but like, it was a lot of money. I think it was $4 or $5 grand, to sort everything out with the medical, but it included lab works and a chest X-ray and the actual consult with the doctor, basically to make sure that Dean wasn't diseased and contagious. Essentially, he just had to prove that he had a measles vaccine and he didn't have TB, but it just ended up being rather expensive. And that was actually linked to the case number that we got from Immigration. So we never even sent a form through to the consulate. Like, I phoned the doctor, gave them the case number, they booked that appointment. We went and had blood work done and the chest X-ray, and then a week later went back and he saw the doctor. And like, the doctor said to him, like, no, you're fine. But nothing was given to us. That was actually directly sent through to the consulate. So then when we went last week to the consulate, I was like, oh, we went for the medical. They were like, yes, we have the records here. So that was quite intriguing. So it was the police clearance, it was the medical, but I mean, like, we also had an odd hiccup with the police clearance. So the South African one takes about 6 weeks. It costs like 109 rand or something. Like, it's an odd number. And you just apply and they fingerprint you and it's done. We had to do the Dutch one, so I had to fill in all these forms for the Dutch and then have it sent to our amazing friend Carl, who was willing to receive them in Belgium. So he had to get the police clearance from the Dutch, sent to him in Belgium. What? Yes, so the Dutch charged 48 euros and 67 cents because that's an accurate costing of how much it costs to get a police clearance in the EU. I don't know. So they wanted that, which we had to transfer to them, and then they sent through a document completely in Dutch saying, that Dean wasn't a criminal, which was great. And so, like, we ended up with this file, like, it was this ridiculously huge file that we had to take with us to the American consulate, which is what we did on Tuesday. And hand everything in, and they want the originals, and it was like, I was kind of stressed going into it. Not that, like, I don't know, I guess I was just afraid, like, what if they told us no, then what? Yeah, so for me, well, that was, thanks Lamont, so yeah, that was for getting citizenship to transfer to Harley. So when I wanted to pass my citizenship on to Harley, I had to prove that beyond me being a US citizen, that I had lived in the US for a total of 5 years, of which 2 years had to be over the age of 14. So I had to, like, go back and tally up every trip back to the States that I had ever taken to make sure that it added up to the full 2 years. So it's just been, yeah, you can imagine, it's a lot of paperwork, and I mean, this stuff is not for the faint of heart. Like, so we had a thing where, because Dean's family moved to the Netherlands when he was a teenager, he had to have, the Netherlands requires when you emigrate that you have an apostilled birth certificate, which means they put like a fancy page in front with a raised seal and a ribbon, and it's all sorts of things basically, where the Department of Home Affairs or the Home Affairs here or Home Office or whatever your nation's thing that they call the Ministry of the Interior certifies that this is really, really a birth certificate. So Dean had an apostille birth certificate, and I never looked past the first page with the raised seal and the ribbon. And then on that checklist of what they wanted from the U.S., it actually specifically says that your birth certificate can't be handwritten. It must be a printout, a computer-generated printout, which was actually what was page 2 of the apostilled birth certificate. So that was like a whole thing of, oh, now do we need to get a different birth certificate? Panic stations, panic stations. Thankfully, I wrote to the consulate, and they were willing to accept the apostilled birth certificate. But it's just been like that with every piece of documentation. Like, then the Dutch police clearance didn't arrive with Carl, so then we had to phone them and say, please resend it, and then wait, and then eventually both arrived together. So yeah, it's been a process, a very long and painful process, but on Tuesday, Stacy, my hot chocolate is gonna get cold. I'm gonna pause, but thankfully I can see on the cup if it's still hot. As long as the picture is still there, my hot chocolate's still hot. Oh, look, melty marshmallow. Thank you, Stacy. Good reminder to drink my hot chocolate, because it is really, really nice. So then we went to the consulate. Sorry, I'm just looking at myself on the picture on this camera now, covered in marshmallow. I apologize, I look terrible. But it's really tasty and worth it. So we went to the consulate and we handed in all our papers, and then they had us sit and wait for like an hour, which you can imagine was a lot of fun, with Harley in tow. And she basically ran around for an hour and played and stuff. And then they called Dean to the counter, and they just kind of checked over our documents, and thankfully, like, so I was there. Like, it wasn't like that we were ever separated. So that was quite cool. Like, in all the stuff that I had seen online and read, that they were going to basically, like, separate us and, like, interrogate us separately to be like, and do the answers match up, and none of that, which was great. So I was with him at the counter, and the guy was like, okay, is all of this true? To the best of your... He didn't even ask that yet. So he was just like, okay, cool, thanks for all the documents. Where are you looking to move in the States? And we told him, we're going to move to Arizona to be near my mom. And he was, obviously that made sense to him. It wasn't like, oh, we're moving to, wherever, like, random place on the map. We had a good reason of where we were going. Dean mentioned that he had work lined up. We talked a little bit just about being excited to go and all of that. And then the guy was like, oh, well, I need this and this form still to be sent in. But, please state your date of birth, your name, hold up your right hand. Do you swear that all these documents are true? Which obviously Dean did. And then he said, congratulations. You need to send in that form as a formality, and then you'll get your passport back with your visa inside. And at which point I started dancing around going, we're going to America, we're going to America. And Dean told me to stop, and he was like, no, we still have to submit the form, blah, blah, blah. And the guy was like, no, I agree with her, it's a formality, congratulations. You're getting a green card! So that's kind of been our journey. Just for those who don't know, it's actually quite cool. So they put the visa in Dean's passport, and it's like a one-time entry visa in the passport. When we arrive in the US, obviously that gets scanned and processed or whatever. We'll give an envelope that we're going to be getting with the passport to Immigration, and then it becomes like a domestic issue, and then they mail the green card to us, like I think 4 to 6 weeks later, something like that. I'm not totally clued up on that end of the process. But yeah, it's just interesting how they put like a single entry visa into his passport, and then that's it. Like, get in, and then you can't leave until you get your green card in the mail. So it's not like we've had some friends who recently moved to Australia, and they just had to like activate their visas. So they had to go to Australia and activate it, and then they could come back. For Dean, I mean, it's not like he can never return or something. but like he can't come back until he has his green card, and that gets sent to you in the mail. So you can't just like arrive in the country, be like, "Yay, I'm living here now," and then disappear 2 minutes later. Um, so yeah, it's just been like a really stressful process. I mean, that's kind of the broad stroke story of it all, but like, immigration is not for the faint of heart. Like, I think there's this real thing of like, well, I'm gonna leave the country. And people kind of jump on this bandwagon of like, I'm not happy in this country, other countries are better, I'm gonna leave. And they don't sort of realize just how much work it is. Like, this whole idea of free movement of people does not really exist. They don't make it easy. Like, they really, really don't. And it's one of those things where I'm very grateful for my passport, and I'm really grateful that I was able to give Harley her dual citizenship, just so that she's got options. I mean, it'll be so nice for her going forward to know that she's got both passports. But also, it's made me aware of like just certain documents that I will always keep. So obviously, like, birth certificates are an obvious one. You always keep your birth certificates and marriage certificates and official government documentation, but also just like school transcripts, which seems silly. Like, why would you keep that after your kid graduates? But actually, it's really helpful for proving where they lived when they were underage, because you won't have rental agreements or pay slips or whatever. They have school transcripts. So to keep those in like a file somewhere, just so that if she ever needs to prove where she went to elementary school, or even like her nursery school here, like, at least then I can prove that, if they ever need that. And on and on, like, all these odd documents, like her vaccination book. Obviously I'm keeping it now because she's in the process of getting vaccinated and will need it throughout her childhood. But like, once she's fully vaccinated, it's not like, okay, cool, check this. It's like, no, that goes in the file. And then if she ever wants to emigrate, she can prove that yes, she did have the vaccine for MMR, or she did have the vaccine for whatever else, Hep A, Hep B. Yeah, exactly. Well, the immunization records, they're so important. Shh. Because I mean, literally, Dean wouldn't have been allowed to come to America if he hadn't had the measles vaccine. So I mean, it's just stuff like that where you realize certain documentation doesn't matter and certain documentation really, really does. So that's been a big learning thing for me. And otherwise, it's just been a thing of like plodding along and making to-do lists and making more to-do lists. And now, having gone from the concept of wanting to emigrate to now getting the consulate essentially giving us approval, having them say congratulations to me counts as approval. Now it's like we move into the next stage of to-do lists. Now it's everything from selling our place to, sorting through everything that we own, figuring out moving, packing, what are we keeping, what are we getting rid of, when are we gonna move, school notice for Harley, just the list seems to go on and on and on. So lots and lots and lots of to-do lists, but that seems to be the nature of the beast. And if anyone is interested in immigrating, like, prepare to make many lists, and then more lists, and then more lists, because that seems to be what it is to move at this point. I'm gonna have another sip of my hot chocolate while it's still hot chocolate and not tepid chocolate. So yeah, so that's kind of been the journey so far. It is really stressful to sort out, but if you are local, it's a whole lot easier than from what I've heard dealing with it in the US. Like, everything I've read, everything I've seen, chatting to other people, it's like, I started this application process in January and it's June and it's being approved. So, and that was with delays with the police clearance, that was with delays with, making sure all of our ducks were in a row as far as the birth certificate, and to think that 6 months ago we were just like, okay, cool, let's get this going, and now it's essentially approved is great. Another big caveat, like, if you aren't sure if you want to use a green card, then you definitely need to sort of square away when you would want to get things going. So we've been approved, and Dean is going to have the visa in his passport, but we have to move by October, otherwise it expires and we have to do this whole process all over again. So yeah, we're not going to wait till October because I'm paranoid and I don't want that to happen. But it's just like, well, it's not like, oh, let me apply for a green card and then if I ever want it, I can use it. It's like, no. If you apply for a green card, you do that because you're really planning to move and live in the US. It's not just something to like have in your back pocket for if you need it. But that said, like, I'm really lucky. Like, it's taken us 6 months for this process, whereas really, like, I've heard of people who, it takes 2 to 3 years for them to sort it out, or like 5 years later and they still don't have it 10 years later. So, we're very lucky in that regard. That it's been a fairly smooth process and like fairly nice people that we've dealt with all along. Like, obviously it's bureaucrats and people, civil servants or whatever, who have a certain amount of like abrupt demeanor to them, I suppose you could say, but actually everybody has been really nice. I think the people who choose to work at a consulate in South Africa are not the same people who you encounter at the DMV inside America. Who also sometimes are really nice. I'm not like saying that all the people who work at government are miserable, but a lot of them are. And we've just had a wonderful experience in the people we've dealt with. And, we did it ourselves. We didn't need lawyers. We didn't need, an agent or someone to do it for us. Like, it really wasn't that bad. And I just kept emailing them and phoning them, being like, hi, I need to fill in this form. Where do I go? What do I do? And they would just direct me. And so it is something that is doable. And obviously I think it's the right decision. I think it's a good thing to do. But, you have to assess your pull factors. You have to assess your push factors. And then make sure that you're making the right decision for you and your family. And make sure that, you're also committed to it. Because there were many steps along the way where we're like, I don't know how we're going to do this. Like, now what do we do? And, you almost feel like, well, screw it. We just won't do it. But it's like, no, that's not an option. We're going to push on. Like, there's enough factors saying that we have to do this. But I think if you're just doing it because, like, some sort of arbitrary idea, like, oh no, life will be better if we emigrate, you need to make sure that you really, really want to do it, because there will be many, many hurdles along the way, and we're not even there yet. Like, I don't even want to think about the next few months, how many hurdles await, but we will get there, one to-do list item at a time. And that's my story. I don't know if any of you have any questions or comments or things. Please, if you are still watching and interested and you thought this was cool, please make sure that you've liked and shared this with the people who are in your network of friends, or leave a comment and tag a friend who you know is thinking of emigrating, who you think would benefit from hearing some of these words, at least. I know I've said a lot in the last half hour, but please be sure to like and share and all of that and tag friends, just because I think that so many people talk about immigration and never make it happen, or wonder what they would need to do to make it happen. So please just share and like and all that, and make sure other people can see this in case they are wondering about this as well. If you thought I was helpful. If you thought I was completely unhelpful, then you don't have to do that. And I'm going to have some more marshmallowy, melty hot chocolate. This is really good, by the way. I love my hot chocolate. So yeah, so that's where we are right now. We should be moving in the next couple months. I will obviously keep you guys in the loop. But yeah, we have to move before October, and I would like to move before then. I don't want to be dragging feet. But there's a lot of admin that needs to get done before we can move. So as much as it was a lot of admin to get to the point where Dean heard congratulations at the consulate, now it's like a whole nother set of to-do lists that we need to tackle. I will be writing about all of this on my blog as well, so if you keep your eyes peeled this week to boardgeek.co.za, and I will be posting just about the experience of kind of going from concept to consulate approval, and then kind of where we are now. I also want to write a whole post about how much it cost us, because I always get asked, like, how much did it cost to sort out our, getting the green card, because people cite these numbers that just boggle my mind. So I'll tell you all how much it cost for me to do, because the main expenses were me doing the initial I-130 application. Christine's medical, and then we had to pay again. We went on Tuesday for the final consulate payments and things. So we had to pay then, and then we've had little things along the way as well, like the police clearances, getting all the copies and printouts and stuff made. So yeah, it does it does add up, but it's nowhere near some of the numbers that I've heard from people in the US. But I'll be going into all of that on the blog in the coming week. Just kind of trying to give you guys a bit of detail on what actually goes into immigrating, and so if you are thinking about it, you can kind of budget or put it in perspective of what you would expect to do. And then also I'll keep you notified as we get ready to move and how much all of that sets us back. Spending all this money just so that we can get to America, and I look forward to our life that we're going to have there, but it's just going to be a bit of a journey until we get there. So anyway, I just want to thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already, then please be sure to do the whole like and subscribe thing, and I will be going live again on Wednesday evening, so if you haven't already, there's like a thing and you can get notified when I go live, so definitely be sure to have liked Born Geek, and I will see you all again on Wednesday night. Thank you all so